The dragon is a large mythical creature that appears in both ancient Western and Eastern cultures. It's typically portrayed as a monster that devours everything in its path and is feared universally by civilization. To go along with most tales of dragons is a dragon slayer, an extraordinary knight or even god who is capable of taking down a dragon. One of the more famous dragon slayer stories is the tale of St. George. The legend goes something like this. A dragon lived near a town and demanded a sacrifice every week. The townspeople started by giving up their sheep, but eventually they ran out of animals and had to start sacrificing people. One day, the most prized possession was selected: the princess. In a heroic battle, the knight St. George slayed the dragon and took back the princess. He became a hero, and his legend is still told today. In the NFL, the most feared creature isn't a dragon, but a goat. This goat terrorized lands farther than the eye could see. With its cunning ability to predict your every move and the accuracy of its attacks, hope across the kingdom had dwindled. Year after year, the goat devoured everything in its sight, and it became more and more powerful. One year, at the height of its powers, the goat had its eyes on the biggest prize of all, and the only thing that stood in its way was Eli, third son of Archie. In high school, Eli Manning received inevitable comparisons to his father and older brother Peyton, but Eli actually possessed more characteristics of his mother. He preferred to be more reserved and quiet, an unusual trait for a quarterback. And unlike Peyton, Eli chose to follow his father's footsteps to Ole Miss, where the speed limit on campus is, by design, 18 miles an hour. Carrying the Manning name and with Peyton's rise in the NFL, Eli quickly became one of the biggest faces in college football. Reporters lined up to get interviews, with of course his family being the number one topic of interest. Despite getting the same questions over and over again about what it was like being Archie's son and Peyton's little brother, Eli never complained once. He granted every media request and completed hundreds of interviews. Following limited action his freshman year, Eli won the starting job as a sophomore. It wouldn't be the first or last opportunity he had to prove to his teammates and the world that he deserved the opportunity he was given. That year he threw for 31 touchdowns and led Ole Miss to a 7-4 record. He took a bit of a step back his junior year, but came out on fire his senior year. The Rebels went 10-3, including a Cotton Bowl victory. Eli won the Maxwell Trophy as the best all-around player and came in third in Heisman voting. At this point, just like his brother, he was projected as the best player in his NFL draft class. There's arguably never been greater pressure put on a quarterback coming out of a draft. The son of Archie Manning, whose older brother was also a number one pick and just won NFL MVP. Then he goes and does the most dramatic thing he's ever done by telling the number one overall Chargers, with their recent rough-looking quarterback history, that he doesn't want to play for them. That information gets leaked by the team. A lot of people start thinking, we've got a drama queen quarterback on our hands. The Chargers, well, they draft him anyway. We get this hilarious photo. Then 45 minutes later, they trade him to the Giants, with the New York media and fan base ready to rip apart anything he does wrong. Following all that draft production, he shows up to his first minicamp practice. First pass, clanks one right off the tackling dummy, nowhere near his target. Luckily, Eli may just be the coolest cat to ever play in the league. He was unfazed that day at practice and would continue to be for the rest of his career. Although he began his rookie year backing up Kurt Warner, Eli immediately impressed in the film room with his comprehension of the offense. He'd work round the clock and come in every off day. To begin the season, Warner led the Giants to a hot start, but eventually they cooled off, and head coach Tom Coughlin decided now was the time for Eli to take over. For the next month and a half, Eli struggled to find his footing, but toward the end of the season, he looked more comfortable, and it seemed the Giants could build towards something for next year. In 2005, the team brought in talented receiver Plexico Burress, giving their second-year quarterback another weapon alongside All-Pro running back Tiki Barber. From there, Eli and company took an important step forward. After starting the year 2-0, the game circled on the calendar was a trip to San Diego. You can bet the Chargers fans hadn't forgotten Eli's cold shoulder toward the franchise. And although he played maybe his best game to date, the Chargers had their way that night. Nevertheless, the Giants put up the league's third highest scoring offense, and Eli was a top 5 quarterback in passing. They took the division at 11-5 and faced off with the Panthers in the wildcard round. At home, though, they would suffer an agonizing 23-0 defeat, with Eli throwing 3 picks. At this moment in his career, there was a lot of good, but also some bad. His next measuring stick game would come quickly, though, as the NFL primed the 2006 opening week with the first ever Manning Bowl. Neither quarterback would thrive that game, but Eli managed to match his brother on the final report card. Unfortunately, the Giants made too many mistakes overall, and the Colts managed to pull out the win. It didn't take long for New York to turn things around, but they stumbled throughout the second half of that season. It got to the point where some were calling for Coughlin's head. The team finished 8-8, but did manage to sneak into the playoffs. This time, they showed up, but sadly lost on a last-second field goal. As questions continued to mount over the future of Coughlin, so did the criticism of Eli, who time and time again had failed to pull out that big win. At the same time, his brother had just won his first championship, and Phillip Rivers, who the Giants traded to the Chargers to get Eli, well, he led San Diego to a 14-2 record. Hall of Famer Harry Carson said, "I've always felt Eli has to take possession of the team and he needs to show he's the man. And I don't see where he's shown he's the man yet. I've just felt from a leadership standpoint, the quarterback has to be able to go out and chew people's butts out if necessary. And that's not the way he's built." He continued saying, "If Eli has a year next year like he had this year, then Eli shouldn't get another year." Coming out of the gate, the 2007 Giants didn't exactly scream confidence. Tiki Barber had retired and was now publicly questioning Eli's leadership skills. Coughlin hired 2 new coordinators and was given a 1-year extension, which is typically a terrible sign for a coach. For a time, the team lost all contact with star defensive end Michael Strahan, who had grown frustrated with his contract, and Coughlin. First 2 weeks of the season, though, the story quickly turned towards Steve Spagnuolo's putrid defensive unit. But in the third game, the defense made an iconic goal line stand, a major turning point in the season as New York won 10 out of 13 games through the middle of December. Eli could move the ball well, but there were still some lingering turnover issues. The debate about whether he could bring a championship to the franchise raged on, even in the owner's box. On the positive side, though, the Giants had clinched the playoffs with 1 game to play. Their final game would find them in the midst of history, as their opponent would be the 15-0 Patriots. Never had a team finished 16-0 in the regular season before. New England had the record books on their mind, and the Giants had a measuring stick on their mind. What better test for the playoffs than to face what was looking like the greatest team of all time? Both teams were locked into their playoff seeding, but both coaches opted to play their starters. Eli went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady, throwing for 4 touchdowns and giving the Patriots the largest deficit they had faced all season. But Brady came roaring back, throwing a 65-yard bomb to take the lead and break the NFL's single-season passing touchdown record. The Giants came close, but in the end, 16-0 had been achieved. After the game, Patriots safety Rodney Harrison said, "Holy crap, I know no one wants to play that team. No one." Even so, the Giants got off to a slow start in their wildcard matchup in Tampa. Everyone was getting deja vu over another early exit, but this time Eli responded with a pair of touchdowns and no turnovers to deliver his first playoff victory. The next game would be a tougher test as the top-seeded Cowboys had handed the Giants 2 losses already that year. In Dallas, Eli was efficient throwing the ball and outdueled Tony Romo. The Giants' defense carried their momentum and booked a trip to Green Bay, where they once again found themselves as heavy underdogs. That night at Lambeau marked one of the coldest playoff games in NFL history. Luckily, if there was anything Eli Manning would ever be, it would be chill. He continuously put his team in the right spots to win and outplayed Brett Favre. Ultimately, one of the most wild kicks in NFL history sent the Packers packing and the Giants to the Super Bowl. Ever since the regular season opener, the Giants had won every road playoff game, and now they had just one more game to capture immortality. Who would be standing in the way? Well, it'd be a rematch with the team that just put together the best season in NFL history. In a way, it was David versus Goliath. The Giants were a 12.5-point underdog. But in their minds, the Patriots barely beat them last time out. They knew they could compete, and their defense found a few cracks in the Patriots' protection scheme the last time they played. So, they were able to get immense pressure up the middle and slow down an offense that hadn't been slowed down all year. Minutes into the fourth, Eli found David Tyree in the end zone to take the lead. The Friday before the Super Bowl, Tyree had what Eli called the worst practice in the history of practices at any level. But like last time, the Patriots reclaimed the lead late with a Brady to Moss touchdown. The game was coming down to a 2-minute drill, and the ball was in Eli Manning's hands. With just a minute 20 left, Manning goes back to Tyree, but it's overthrown and Asante Samuel can't quite handle it. Then on the very next play, it happened.
He's in trouble. He's spun around. He's able to get away. Looks to throw. He does downfield, and elitely catch is made down at the 25. What a play. David Tyree.
In that moment, with the pocket collapsing, legacies on the line, Eli did what he always did. He remained calm, cool, and collected. Pair that up with a miracle catch, and you have the greatest play in NFL history. Less than a minute later, Eli lobbed one for Burris in the end zone, and that would be the game winner. It took a perfect game to ruin perfection and beat the best team of the Tom Brady era. Eli was awarded Super Bowl MVP and had eliminated all doubts that he couldn't clinch one in the big-time moments. Along with incredible consistency from the defense, he led the Giants to maybe the most improbable Super Bowl run ever. In 2008, Eli had his best regular season to date, and the Giants looked dominant as they opened the year 10-1. But in late November, star receiver Plexico Burris accidentally shot himself in the leg. It was a national embarrassment and sort of derailed the team's season. After the famous incident, the Giants finished 2-3, then lost their opening playoff game against the Eagles. For the next 2 seasons, they failed to make the playoffs. In 2011, the offense relied on Eli's arm more than ever before. The highlight of the regular season came with a game-winning pass in the final minute of another showdown with the Patriots. That would be the theme for this season. Eli set the record for most fourth-quarter passing touchdowns in a year. Those clutch wins made all the difference as the Giants snuck into the playoffs at 9-7. After stifling the Falcons in round 1, the road to the Super Bowl once again winded through Green Bay. This time, though, the game wasn't as close. 4 years prior, Eli had taken down Brett Favre in Lambeau, and now he'd done it to Aaron Rodgers' 15-1 Packers. San Francisco hosted the NFC Championship. Jim Harbaugh had a well-balanced offense and an elite defense. Despite a dreadful performance from his O-line, Eli was terrific. And the Giants survived an overtime thriller. Once again, who was waiting for them at the Super Bowl? Of course, it was the Patriots, still looking to get the 4th ring of their dynasty. This Patriots team wasn't nearly as strong as the 2007 version. The offense was still top tier, but the defense, well, at times they had Julian Edelman in at defensive back. New York's game plan was very similar to Super Bowl 42. Keep the Patriots offense off the field with clock-draining drives and get pressure up the middle on Brady. The recipe had seemingly worked again, but as time was winding down in the game, the Giants found themselves down by 2 on their own 12-yard line. On the first play of the drive, Eli conjured his helmet catch magic.
Eli throwing into traffic on the sideline. They're going to rule it a catch by Manningham.
The helmet catch may have been the best catch in NFL history, but the Manning to Manningham connection may have been one of the greatest throws in NFL history. The Giants had run that play over 100 times in practices and games, and not once did Eli ever get the right coverage to throw it to Manningham. Even still, he made it clear to Manningham exactly what he needed him to do on the play if the opportunity ever came knocking. And it came in the final minutes of the biggest game of the year. Following that, Eli continued driving down the field to set up an Ahmad Bradshaw game-winning touchdown. Somehow, someway, he did it again. 2011 was not just an encore to 2007. This playoff run was Eli's magnum opus. You look at the gauntlet of teams he took down: 15-1 Packers, 13-3 49ers, 13-3 Patriots. He sets the record for most yards in a playoff run, throws 9 touchdowns and 1 interception, on the road every game, Super Bowl MVP. It has an argument for the best playoff quarterback performance ever. Sadly, for the next 4 years, the Giants failed to make the playoffs. Perhaps another sign at how truly incredible the 2011 season was. Still, there were some positives in this era. Eli gained his best receiver ever in Odell Beckham Jr. In 2015, he threw a career-high 35 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, the team went 6-10, and Tom Coughlin stepped down as head coach. Offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo was promoted to head coach, and the Giants spent the offseason trying to rebuild their lousy defense. The formula worked as the team went 11-5. After the regular season ended, McAdoo gave the team a day off as they prepared for their wildcard matchup against the Packers. The wide receivers took advantage and headed down to Miami for the day, which resulted in the infamous boat photo with Trey Songz. 1 week later, they were embarrassed in Lambeau, with drops being the #1 issue on offense. That controversy left a sour taste in their collective mouth. A few months into the next season, the Giants sat at 2-9, and McAdoo made the problematic decision to bench Eli in favor of Geno Smith. This unceremoniously broke Eli's streak of 210 consecutive starts, which generated nothing but backlash from the fanbase. Eli handled it exactly how you would expect, saying something along the lines of, "It's not like we're talking about Joe DiMaggio here." After losing that game, McAdoo was fired, and Eli was inserted back into the starting lineup. With a 3-13 record, it was the worst of the Manning era. Things would only get marginally better the next year, but at the very least, Eli started every game. Still, there was a feeling that things were coming to an end. In the 2019 draft, the Giants used their top 10 pick on Duke quarterback Daniel Jones. Soon after the draft, Jones received a call. It was from Eli, who just wanted to welcome Jones to the team. Although Eli had now become a lame duck quarterback, he was still starting his franchise record 16th season for the team. After 2 opening losses, though, head coach Pat Shurmur made the transition to Jones. At the time, it was thought this was the end for Eli. Later, though, Jones suffered an ankle injury, and Eli got to play 2 games, including one final send-off with a standing ovation from the home crowd. In January 2020, Eli announced that his career would be coming to a close. The Giants retired his number and inducted him into the Ring of Honor. He also started a new fan engagement role with the team and linked up with his brother on ESPN for Monday Night Football's Manning Cast, as well as the ESPN Plus series Eli's Places, where the world gets to see his goofiness on display. As we wrap things up, I should mention Eli's Walter Payton Man of the Year award he won in 2017 for the great charitable work he did throughout his career. When we think about his legacy, that should no doubt be a part of it. On the field, though, Eli came in as maybe the perfect quarterback for the New York market. The word expectations was essentially written on his birth certificate, and all he did was exceed them. Any franchise would dream of using their #1 pick on a 16-year quarterback with 2 Super Bowl MVPs. After all, he actually delivered more championships to New York than Peyton did for Indy. He also went toe-to-toe with the greatest to ever do it, and he outdid him not once, but twice. So when you think about the story of a career, few can top the Goat Slayer.
Remember to never forgive Joe Buck for his awful helmet catch call.
Thomas off the edge. Eli Manning stays on his feet. Airs it out down the field. It is caught by Tyree.